point of view, where we give students a place to listen, learn, and lean in. I'm your host, Marcus Kim, and today we'll be interviewing Miss Pope and Mr. DeLong about their high school experiences. So, Miss Pope and Mr. DeLong, how are you today?
Great, thank you. How are you, Marcus?
Not so great. It's a day in school.
Right.
Yeah. See, unlike you guys, I don't get paid to be here.
I don't know if you can say I paid.
This is very true. All right. So, of course, a lot of students kind of forget that teachers were once high schoolers too. So, if you guys could describe your past high school selves in one phrase, what would it be?
I think mine would be quiet and reserved.
I see.
I think that's what I would say.
And I'd say mine would be nerdy, but nerdy and in love with learning. I wanted to be at school. I wanted to learn. That was part of
So you woke up like every day excited to go to school.
Yeah, I was that little nerd that enjoyed just the activity of being here at school and the learning process. Mm-hmm.
Would you say that, so for those of you that don't know, Mr. DeLong was actually a student of Miss Pope.
Mm-hmm.
So, Mr. DeLong, was there ever a day that you didn't want to go in Miss Pope's class?
Not in Miss Pope's class, because her class was always very fun to be in, but there were definitely times in other classes that I would just not want to show up. Yeah.
And Miss Pope, you said that you enjoyed going to school every day, so even were there any classes you didn't like?
I think a lot of you will identify with this, that the first time I remember ever needing to leave a class because I needed to cry was math.
Oh, I see. I think a lot of Northern students can relate.
I get that a lot would identify with that. So that moment, that math moment, when I realized that the A's I'd been achieving in math were crashing and that I'd sort of reached my limit in my math experience.
So you went to high school in
South Africa.
South Africa. And was there like a specific teacher in your high school experience that made you decide, I want to be a teacher?
I really am going to be honest. I don't think it was the teachers. Funny enough, there was an elementary school teacher, my 7th grade teacher. She was really inspiring, but high school, not particularly. It was more college. If I go actually towards a college experience, which you guys are still going to experience, that is often the college professor who, I don't know, maybe has more creative freedom to really inspire you in a direction. Also, my parents both came from teaching environments. And so I grew up in the world of having parents who had taught and had been teachers and in a family that were teachers. So I think that was part of what inspired me more than actually the teachers in school.
Yeah, I mean, similar to me, son of both teachers, 2 teachers. I would say in terms of teachers at Northview, when I had, he's not here anymore, but Mr. Pfeiffer was my 9th grade math teacher. And he was very eccentric, and he also stuttered like me as well. And I don't meet a lot of people that stutter or so blatantly as I do from time to time. And it was different but refreshing to see someone who was in this profession who could overcome that and sort of own it to a certain degree.
Right. Do you have any students of yourself that, like yourself, have stutters?
To my knowledge, no. I mean, some students will stutter, but that's just from being nervous, not from just an innate inability to say something because of genetics, myself.
Are there ever times where you see some of your own students and relate your past high school self to those students?
Yeah, I mean, I was pretty awkward at times, and a lot of these kids can be pretty awkward too. I think being able to communicate with adults is very effective, and that's definitely something that I've learned to get better at, and obviously being an adult now, I have to. But there are students who are very difficult to communicate with because they either can't make eye contact, they can't articulate their ideas in a way that I can understand them the way that they want me to. So that's things that I try to pick up on, and I'll go on my way to try to help them.
And Miss Pope, well, you've been on this earth a little bit longer, so no offense, but would you say you remember your high school, the high school experience fairly well?
I do. I think though. I think we've got to remember. I think sometimes when you get caught up in the high school experience, you think this is be all and end all, and you're really at the start of the journey of your life. Graduating high school is one tiny step, and the full extent of what your life becomes. But I remember particular moments. Like a time I failed math and realized I'd come to the end of my math journey, or like making the first team for my field hockey team.
Wow.
So those were kind of moments, those academic moments. Yeah. You don't remember near as half as actually those social moments and the interactions you had with people that sort of cement that memory for you.
Yeah.
And make high school the experience you remember.
Yeah, and I've actually experienced three different high schools. And Mr. DeLong, as a alumni from Northview, would you say that from the time you graduated, was it like the cutthroat, super strict academic kind of environment the same?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I think Northview has always been really competitive. I think also Northview is very cliquey. I mean, I think we're very diverse, but like students have very sets of friends, and I know that's the same for all high schools. But I feel like Northview has it pretty severe still. Like students are very set on who they want to communicate with and share ideas with and whatnot. And a lot of my friends are also former students of Northview, and almost all of them I actually never talked to when I was a student here. It was after high school, in college, or just outside that. Like those barriers kind of broke, but I feel like at Northview, like there were very high barriers to be able to communicate outside of like your friend group.
Just to add to what Jason's saying, I think it's funny. We want to say Northview had a lot of. Every high school does. I think it's the nature of high school and the nature of being teenagers, and university was a different experience. I think you break those boundaries and you find bigger connections and deeper connections with people than you do at the high school level. I don't know if it's a safety aspect at high school. You're still discovering yourself and your identity and who you are that creates these cliques that we find comfort with. Or not, that we're forced into, whatever the situation is.
Right. So both of you as teachers at Northview, of course, Mr. DeLong in math and Miss Pope in English, you've definitely seen some students that are super, super stressed and getting perfect grades is their absolute number one priority. Now that you guys are adults, do you have a different retrospect and kind of a different view on life?
I think when I look back with my larger experience of a few more years on this, is perspective. Looking back, I think it's so hard because you get caught up in the in the high school experience, and I don't blame you. I mean, that's your narrow world view at the moment and what you're feeling. Do I think the stress is worse than possibly what your parents had? And you know what I'm going to say yes. And I think for you to recognize a real sense of stress, and to feel an extra pressure, I'm going to say yes. I feel like every generation almost demands of the next generation a closer move to this perfect student in this perfect place. And there's that, if you're going to be successful, what job are you pursuing, and what career are you getting to the point that we've lost sight of just being human beings in the moment and enjoying things in the moment. There's a real pressure to try and meet this outside expectation, and I don't think it's got lighter. I think it's got harder.
Yeah. I mean,
I think what I'm going to say. The more global we become, it's almost more like how do we meet the global competition? We're not even talking about local competition, because if you think back to your parents, often it was where they went to school was where they're going to work and get their jobs. Maybe not your parents, but your grandparents. Now your work can take you anywhere in the world, but then who are you competing against? What does that look like? And when we're up against a world of more and more educated people, it's closing in on us.
It's a vicious cycle.
Yeah.
my opinion has ever evolved about this pursuit of perfection. I think that because it's a vicious cycle, you're almost forced to,
Right.
where like a lot of these college professors today couldn't be professors if they were students now,
Yeah.
because like the barrier for entry is so much higher now. And I think the best way to combat burnout would be to just find the profession, find the job that like that you want to do. And I think if you can't find that route, then burnout's going to be a huge problem.
Oh,
and
yeah.
We're going to need to change.
I've seen amongst my peers a lot of burnout, and I see it basically any class I go to, right? Like, it might seem mean to say, but sometimes I see some of my friends have gray hairs from all the stress they've been under.
And maybe it's not necessarily the pursuit of a career or finding out what it is that you want to do, because there's so much out there we don't know what we want to do, but maybe your passion,
Yeah.
like that you can follow your passions, that you're not being forced into things that are not you. And we know so many students that are being told, you're going to have to follow this technology route or this business route,
Oh,
because
yeah,
that's where you're going to find success. And then you were like, wait, I want to draw pretty postcards and send those to my friends.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people, or a lot of my peers, are like, oh yeah, I need to do so well to prepare me to get into a good college, right? And to then get a good job. So then an interesting narrative comes up where it's, are you truly preparing yourself for life after high school by studying immensely and always being so absorbed in academia?
No. There's so much more to life. And it depends on who you are. Like, I think you've got to find that root of academia that inspires you and moves you. I love reading great essays. And with the AP Lang experience, all
I
of
loved
the
AP Lang.
grades, right, and the great writing that's out there. I love that pursuit of academia, but I'm not going to sit and learn how to code or that. I think you've got to decide what it is that you like the most,
Right.
and to put yourself out in that direction.
I mean, it's a balance. It's a balance thing, but I've definitely seen people that have changed their lives from purely moving to academics, where they didn't have a direction in life,
Yeah.
and they sat down and they taught themselves coding, or they did the work. And I think there comes a time when being a college kid is fun, but then you got to start paying the bills, and it's like,
Right.
yeah, I did an art major, but that's not gonna pay for my rent or pay for my
Right.
water.
So it's all about the balance, right?
Yeah, the balance, and I think the practicality of just, I don't know, not anything you do will work. You have to be lucky, or take a business major
Yeah.
to make a lot of money.
All right. Well, thank you so much for your time here. I'll let you guys get back to your classes so you can teach the future generation of America, or other countries, who knows. But thank you so much for your time.
Marcus, anytime.
This concludes our talk with Ms. Pope and Mr. DeLong. Thank you so much for listening. For a transcript of this episode, head to the NHS Point of View tab on our website, nhsmessenger.org, and follow us on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook at NHS Point of View for updates and new episodes. I'm your host, Marcus Kim, and this has been Point of View.